16.976. You've just set your...
So the qualifier is 2 laps, but I ran this lap on the first lap. The second lap can be fast, but it's going to be slightly slower because your tires be slightly warmer. So I ran mine on the first lap, but you can always attempt the second lap if you mess up your first one. So right now I am in turn 3. I just came out of pit road. And I'm setting up for my run to the start finish line. When I cross start finish line, I want to be as fast as possible. I want to have the highest speed, but I also want to be pretty wide. So if I'm pretty wide, then I can set it for turn 1. So I'm completely out of the gas, and I'm pretty far off the bottom lane in turn 3. I'm going to turn down, and as I turn down, I'm going to accelerate. Turn down and accelerating. I accelerated full throttle right there. This is all in turn 3. And now what I'm trying to do, I'm in second gear by the way. What I'm trying to do is get really close to this turn 4 curb. You don't have to be right next to it, but just be close to it. And I'm picking up throttle really early. Getting close to it. Now I'm trying to make this really straight. I'm trying to make this straight as possible. But I'm also trying to get wide. Because turn 1 entry is really right at the start finish line. So I'm full throttle, getting wide. My speed was 81 at the start finish line, just for measure. Now I am, you can count lanes like this by the seam, so I'm 1, 2, 3, I'm going to be 4 lanes down when I cross start finish line. This is the 4th lane. Reason for that is because I'm opening my entry. I'm making my entry as wide as possible. If I were to make it any wider, if I were to go all the way out to like the 5th or 6th lane, then it would be really wide, so you have a lot of speed through the corner, but it would take forever for you to get in the corner, so you'd lose a lot of speed just because of how much distance you have to drive. So now that I'm at the start finish line, I'm turning into the corner. See, my wheel input is pretty strong there for my entry. Because this whole track is really one big circle, I've never had the wheel perfectly straight. So I turn in right away, right when I cross start finish line. And I'm not aiming for this curb. I'm kind of aiming just slightly off the curb. Just going to drive it slightly off the curb. Just slightly off this curb, because I'm aiming for that curb. I'm trying to apex at this curb. You're really going to have 2 apexes. So as soon as I can view that curb, I have a direct shot to that curb, I get off the throttle. So I'm just going to get out of the throttle there. Get off it completely. And I get on the brake a little bit. Just a little bit. Right there. Just tiny bit. Now you see I put more throttle in. I'm just matching the RPMs and I'm downshifting. So when I went to the start finish line, I had so much speed that I had to upshift to 3rd. Now you go from 3rd and downshift into 2nd. And I do that right there when I match the RPMs with the throttle. Downshift to 2nd, and you can see it kind of turns the car when I downshift. So try to use that downshift to help you turn the car. Now that I'm in the corner, I reach this apex. I'm completely off throttle, and I'm going pretty straight. The reason I have to go straight is because this curb is not exactly in line with this curb. This curb is a lot more to the left, while this curb is a lot more to the right. So I'm going pretty straight here, because I don't want to run through that curb. I want to be as close to it as possible without running it over. So I'm going really straight off this apex. So apex here, but I'm going pretty straight. Still got plenty of wheel in it, but my car is going pretty straight. Now that I've gotten close to this curb, the car still wants to go straight. It still wants to go straight. So I'm going to tap the brake there. Just a really slight tap. That allows the car to turn more. I also put more throttle in it, so when I tap the brake, I also put more wheel in it, not throttle. So tap the brake, put more wheel in it, and that helps the car rotate. So now I'm no longer going straight, now I'm turning. No longer going straight, I'm turning. Now when I complete my turning, when I see the car turning, that's when I throttle up. And I go straight to full throttle. Try to keep it as close to this line as possible, this curb. As close to this curb as possible. I'll get off it a little bit, which is okay. You see I still have a lot of wheel in it. We're going to keep that wheel throughout this straightaway here, because it's a really short straightaway. You're already going to be turning into your turn 3. Now I go pretty wide here. Say I go between this seam and this seam. You can kind of measure where you are based on the seams, and then in replay I like to look at this signage back here, see if the signage matches with the seam. If you're riding this seam, then the signage would be a little bit to the right. So make sure you're aligned with the signage in the seam when you get off of turn 2. Probably gonna have to look at a replay for that because it is really quick around this track. Now I'm full throttle still as I turn in. Kind of aiming for a later apex because this thing is one big curb, unlike turn 1 and 2. This thing is just one big curb. Now that I'm closer to the curbing, I downshift. I forgot to mention it, but I upshifted here. You see the RPM in the bottom there. Once it reaches about 8 to 9,000, you upshift. See, I upshifted about 8.5. Bring it to third. So I can downshift in here and get the car to rotate when I downshift. So I'm just about where the curb is, off throttle. Just a slight bit of brake right there before the downshift. Then I downshift, match the RPM with the throttle. Downshift there. Getting close to the curb. You're really gonna hug this curb. Still on the brake just a tiny bit, just using the brake as I need. The reason I need to use the brake is because I want that car to turn and I don't want it to slide up the track. I want to get as close to this curbing without hitting it. So I'm right up next to the curbing. Using the brake only when I need to. Only when I feel that the car is going to go a little bit away from the curbing. Now that I kind of completed this curb and started looking at this curb, I'm on throttle. So once I get past this curb, the car is rotated enough that I'm on throttle. I just pick it up immediately that this curve disappears. And I'm just straight full throttle. Still have tons of wheel in it. Trying to get the car to turn. It's qualifying so you don't have to worry about tire wear. Just hugging that apron. So I'm hugging this apron / curb. Still full throttle. Trying not to hit it. Trying as close as possible. Trying to make this thing travel the least amount of distance while maintaining the most amount of speed. Across the line for 16.97.